Hi there, and welcome back to the Beyond Aromatics podcast. Today we have on special guest Sandra Shuff. Sandra is a grower, master artisan distiller, and trained aromatherapist. She is a board member for the Washington Lavender Growers Association, regional director for the U.S. Lavender Growers Association, and regional director in Washington with NAHA. Sandra has been mentored by world leaders in essential oils and hydrostols in both distillation and aromatherapy. Her true passion is as an educator to guide people into a healthy life through holistic resources. All right, enjoy the show. So welcome back to the Beyond Aromatics podcast. I'm here today with my dear friend, and I'm so glad I can say that. Sandra is the owner, farmer?
I'm a grower and a distiller.
Of Evening Light Lavender Farms here in right outside, really technically, right, Spokane, Washington. And she is also our regional director for NAHA, which is kind of how we got to know each other. And I had the honor of being able to meet her in her farm. So right now, do you want to tell us where we're at, Sandra?
Sure. We, specifically, or
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we are specifically sitting on a couch on the dance floor of our wedding venue, but we were able to look out at the lavender fields, and we missed the sunset already tonight, but it's a really beautiful place to be, actually.
So in kind of the middle of this big lavender farm, which I've got to say, like, driving up to it and seeing all the different shades of purple was like, I've seen it in pictures, but seeing it in person, and I say shades of purple, shades of pink, and shades of like off-white and blues and stuff was quite something to behold. And I guess you get to enjoy this all seasons of life and stuff. So that must be pretty special. But I kind of wanted to have you here today so we could talk about, how you got started and really what you do with this lavender farm, this beautiful place you've created. Tell us, how did this Evening Light Lavender come to be?
Well, it came to be because by the time I actually was able to have the reality of being able to start studying to become a naturopath, which is what I really wanted to do. By then, I had raised my children, helped my husband start his business. By then, we had moved away from the Seattle area, so Bastyr was too far away. And I couldn't fathom leaving my husband for 8 years so I could go to school, right? So, the long of the short of it is, one day my husband said, well, why don't you do something with our property? Because we have this 50 acres, and we hadn't done anything with it. And so, I thought about that a lot, and I prayed about it. And one day we had gone over to Seattle, and on our way back, we stopped in Leavenworth. And if you haven't been to Leavenworth, Washington, that's a really cool place to go. It's a Bavarian community there. I mean, you feel like you've just stepped in Switzerland. It's really cool. Anyway, we stopped in there at my favorite bookstore and got my iced tea, and I was just walking around, and all of a sudden I looked over and kind of turned my head sideways and looked at this book on the shelf, and it was all about lavender. And by the time we got back to Spokane, that book was highlighted, it was written on, I had plans, everything that I had been trying to figure out, what was I going to do now that I've raised my children and, started my husband's company. Now now it's my turn, right? And I knew then at that time that that's what it was going to be.
I think it's pretty cool, and I know you've told me this, but why lavender works out so well in your area and on your property, and why it was kind of the winner of all the things you could be doing with your land.
Oh, well, because I have terrible soil. I mean, because if you think about it, that lavender is a Mediterranean plant, and for where we are, the land that we have had been used by the cattle that the previous owner had run cattle. We're now the third owners since the days of the prairie days, on this piece of property, but the previous owner ran cattle on it, and so it was fairly depleted. And one thing about lavender is that if you think about Mediterranean soil, it's dry, it's rocky, it's sandy, it doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it, and it's perfect for lavender. And so this was perfect.
So how did your first experience growing lavender? Because you've never really done it before, had you?
Well, before I planted anything, after that, I spent like 3 years reading anything I could get my hands on. And I started, of course, the internet searches and stuff, and you can't always trust those, I've learned. But I also joined the U.S. Lavender Growers Association, which is a national organization. And I just started learning all about it, everything I could. Once I did that, I did a test garden, and I put 2 of multiple different varieties in this garden. And some of those actually still exist today. I did that at first, and based on that, then I started my first plantings. Yeah.
So you tell us the story of how your first winter went with the lavender.
Oh, you want me to tell that one?
I love that one. It's so funny to me.
Okay, so I went to go plant my first field, and I planted 10 rows. And those 10 rows were 102 feet long. And in all the research I had done and stuff, because we are in the coldest climate that lavender can grow in, we are also what's considered the beginning of high altitude lavender, because we're above 2,500 foot elevation. So, and we have 4 seasons here. So I was going to cover the lavender. So I covered the first 5 rows that I was going to cover. And then I had family members tell me that was just really dumb. I didn't need to do that. I was wasting time. I was wasting money, all this kind of stuff. And I finally got mad and I walked away. And so that meant that 5 of those rows weren't covered. Well, when the season ended and we went out to uncover it, well, the part that I did not cover, every single one of those were dead. And the part that I had covered was now twice the size. It was green. It was beautiful. And ever since then, there's no question what we do the first 2 years that we plant new lavender. So, yeah, it is kind of funny because, it's also kind of sad.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's part of the learning experience, right? You had a little trial phase and you're like, see, this is the way that I have to do it now, right?
Right. I didn't ever have to explain it again after that. That's right. And the other thing, too, is it also gave me an opportunity because I do a lot of teaching for the U.S. Lavender Growers Association during their conferences and that sort of thing. But it gave me an opportunity really to help a lot of other people, too, that they didn't know what they needed to do in the wintertime, and given a similar climate, I've been able to help a lot of people save their plants.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because in one of my presentations, I have pictures where you can see both sections side by side, and it's just like totally vast in its differences.
So, so you started out, you had 5 rows that made it in your little test garden. And so what are you working with now? What does your farm look like today?
Today? Well, more than I imagined originally, but I have about 21,000 lavender plants in the ground. Everything is certified organic, so therefore that means that everything is done by hand. So whether it's weeding or planting or maintaining it, fertilizing, whether it's trimming or anything that we do, it's all done by hand here, everything. So that's a lot of plants.
Well, how many different plots do you have, I guess, would you say?
Okay, well, I have multiple different fields. So we have 7 different what we call fields, but within each of those fields we also have, like you said, a plot. That would be some people's fields. And we have multiple colors of lavender. We have white. We have 3 different colors of pink lavenders. We have violets, blues, purples, lilac-colored lavender. We have 41 varieties on property. But it's really beautiful because out in the front field, I made it to look sort of like a patchwork quilt, right? So that the different colors are all grouped together, and it looks really pretty.
It does. I really love that because you get to see all the contrast, and I think everybody pulls up the first time and they're like, wait, there's like white lavender?
Right.
This lavender isn't just lavender colored.
That's right. Yeah. So I have had men in particular, for some reason, when they come into the store, they'll look at me and they'll be asking questions and they'll go, wow, I always just thought lavender was a color, But I've had some funny stories too. I've also had people come into the store, and I had one woman, oh my goodness, she told me she was smelling a sachet, and she said, well, this isn't real lavender. And I was kind of like, well, I'm standing here looking out the windows at all my lavender.
Lavender fields, you're like, well,
and
then
I'm thinking,
what could it be?
well, so what do you mean by that? And she honestly said, well, it doesn't smell anything like my Tide. I actually was speechless, which is a rare moment, right? I really didn't know how to respond to that exactly, but I went into education mode, and I was gentle about it. And anyway, it was a very interesting experience, but that's one of the funny ones.
That is funny. Oh gosh. Well, so you went from all these plants, they bloom, they're beautiful. And then what did you have a moment you're like, okay, well now I have to do something with them? Where was your...
Well, during you have 3 to 5 years before you have, full production. It's kind of like when you plant an orchard, for an apple tree or something, it takes time before you start bearing fruit, at least in the production you need to. And so during that time, I was always learning and always studying, and I'm a learner before an educator, so it goes together. But I did a lot of research and stuff, and I actually went to a distillers conference for the Lavender Association in Colorado, and that's when I met Ann Herman, and that changed my world. Then I started taking her classes. I read her book wasn't out yet at that time, and of course I've owned that now too. But so that's kind of where it started, and then over the years I've been able to study with people literally from all over the globe for distillation, and it's really my passion of all the things that I do. And so and then I got my first still. Her name is Felicity. She's a 40-liter copper Olympic still. And that's when I did, she helped me learn because she helped me through my mistakes and that kind of thing. So I tried a lot of different things with the distillation with her. And then next I got Sophia and Bernard. They're both 150-liter copper stills. And I just started learning, and I started getting clients, and I have a cosmetic company now, and just different, things that... and it just continued to grow, and it's something that I just love doing.
Yeah.
And now I have Lily, my 20-liter still. So that's my copper
my copper
still.
family.
I was going to say that same thing. So that's just my copper Olympic still family. So
I always like to know, what were some of the failures you had? Because I think that's so important to some of things like farming and then distilling, and I feel like that those always come to pass, and I always want to know what things other people struggle with.
Sure. Well, those kinds of things are some of the greatest teachers too. Maybe the hardest, but they're the greatest teachers. So just like our frost fabric story, that really truly it was a big learning lesson, and you don't make that lesson again. You don't make that mistake again. But I do remember my very first distillation on my big stills, one of my big stills. It was on Bernard, and just getting used to new equipment too. Now I feel like they all have their own personalities, and I know how they, I almost feel like feel like they think. But when the first time I did it, that was my one and only time I had a blowout. From because you make a rye dough to seal the still. And traditionally, that's what you do. And I did it, but I somehow made a mistake somewhere, and I had a blowout. And oh my goodness, it was so upsetting for me because I have 100 pounds of lavender in there, and I just knew it was going to waste because rightfully so. By the time that hydrosol came out, it had lost those high volatiles, and so it was just flat. It just wasn't exciting at all. And so I learned from that, and I've never made that mistake again. But that was my very first distillation on it.
Oh,
so I was thinking, I've just invested in all of this, and now I'm going to be a failure. That's what you think, right?
Yeah. I think that I didn't know the rye dough was so critical. I didn't even realize what you guys were saying when you were like, there's dough up there. And then afterwards, when we were taking it apart, he was like, do you want a piece of bread? And I was like, what?
Yeah, so my distiller, I have a distiller assistant for the first time this year. And yeah, so he loves to eat the rye dough off of it, and especially the citruses when I do, because I do 48 different botanicals. I don't just do lavender. And so I do the citrus, I do 6 different citruses. And when I do those, I did them the end of February, 1st of March, kind of in there. And it was really funny because he took a bite of that dough and, it cooks. So it's not dough, it's actually bread, right? So it's bread that's cooked on my still while we distill. So whatever it is I'm distilling kind of absorbs into it. I'm gluten-free, I can't eat it anyway, I'm not interested in eating it. But I had another young man that used to just help clean stills for me, and he used to eat it too. And I was like, why? But apparently, it must taste good.
I won't lie. I took a bite today, and then a few minutes later, I went back for another piece. And a few minutes later, I was like, am I really going back for another piece
of lavender bread?
I don't know why, but it was kind of good in a weird way. But I kind of just thought it was cool, farm stuff. I was like, stuff you do on the farm.
Yeah.
So the kind of wanted you to break down what the difference between what you're doing and what maybe some bigger manufacturers are doing.
Okay, so I'm an artisan distiller, and one of the big differences is typically a commercial distiller is going to be on a stainless steel because it's going to be a very large still, and copper would be way too expensive. And so for a commercial distiller, typically I think a commercial distiller fits well with the food and flavor industry more than aromatherapy or perfumery, kind of a thing. But the stainless steel is it's going to have, because it's a larger still, it's going to also have pressurized steam that's going to push through it. And their distillation for an essential oil can be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So it's a really fast process. And economically, that's really what they need to do. But as an artisan distiller, I use copper. And one of the main reasons that other than the fact that they're beautiful, and I have a beautiful copper family, but outside of that, the sulfides that get pulled out of it through the copper distillation process make so that your essential oils and your hydrosols come off the still beautiful. Versus in a commercial distiller with a stainless steel, those essential oils really need to sit on a shelf to off gas for about a year before they can even. It's not even anything you'd want to receive, let alone that they can. So that's a big difference right there. The other thing, too, is the molecules that come through on a fast distillation versus a low, slow distillation, because I specialize in hydrosols, so I predominantly distill for the hydrosol, which is a much slower process, a much longer process. So I'm in the still room about 12 hours a day. And I usually have fire under them for about 7 to 8 of those hours. And part of the reason for that slow distillation is because there are molecules that are larger molecules that are slower to release. So, and we don't pressure our steam through, we let it naturally rise through, and that's a whole different, way to approach it. And so those larger molecules will come across much later. And if you aren't doing it that way, I feel like you're missing the complete product that you could have by doing it faster. I mean, I understand the commercial side, why they have to do it that way, but as an artisan distiller, I get to capture a complete whole essential oil, complete whole hydrosol.
I guess that kind of leads into my next question. Why hydrosols? Why not essential oils?
Well, I believe in both,
right.
Of course, right? Mm-hmm. But I do live hydrosols, truly. I mean, it's my whole life. Yes, I have a lot of them in my bathroom, especially. I have some in my kitchen. I've got them. It's my life. My grandchildren have their own sets of hydrosols, even in my children. And but I do really believe in hydrosols because being that it's about 1,000th the strength of an essential oil, a hydrosol has a a greater opportunity to impact our bodies because our bodies are going to receive those more easily. So I really feel like there's a big place for hydrosols, especially for children and the elderly, the infirmed, people that have bad health issues, that maybe an essential oil might be a little too powerful for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're a powerful tool. They really are. They're a gift, but they're very powerful. Yeah. And I do believe in using essential oils as well.
And I know I like hydrosols because we have dogs in our house and stuff, and there's so much gentler around animals, and so. Well,
I don't know about you, but I use the hydrosols in my diffuser as well, because then I don't have to worry about the 1 to 3 rule, and if it's going to be too much or anything like that. I love using hydrosols in my diffuser.
So, but you don't just do hydrosols. You do, like you said, essential oils. You do other skincare products.
I do.
You do. I kind of think this aspect is interesting. Tell us about the culinary lavender uses you have. The culinary lavender.
So I have 4 different varieties of lavender that we process for culinary, which is a much slower harvesting because you have to, bundle it in certain sizes, and you hang it and you dry it and then you debud it. It's probably the most touched process I have is to create the culinary buds. But the reason we do them is because they're so wonderful. So, so I have the white lavender that I have is called Arctic Snow. That's the variety. So it's Lavandula angustifolia variety Arctic Snow. And that one is a lavender that has a peppery taste to it. So it's lavender with pepper. So it's perfect for savory dishes, your soups, your salads. It's also good for vegetables, perhaps, and the meats. Oh, yeah, to use it on meat is really good. So that is one of them. Another one that I have is Royal Velvet, and that's a Lavandula angustifolia Royal Velvet. That is also one that's pretty well known. People have known about that one for a long time. But one of them I think is beautiful is the Avis Hill variety, which is also an angustifolia. And it's a beautiful deep purple lavender with longer stems, but it's an angustifolia. And it's one that's well-rounded. You can use it across the board, whatever dishes you want to use, from the sweet to the savory to, whether it's an hors d'oeuvre or a dessert or a main dish, it doesn't matter. And then the last one that I have is a Melissa variety, which is kind of funny because I have the Melissa lilac variety of lavender. I have the Melissa variety of lavender. I also raise lilacs here, and there's Melissa plants, right? So it's a little confusing. But the Lavandula angustifolia variety Melissa is a really good one for sweet dishes, especially. So that's the one I use for my lavender lemonade and lavender iced tea. We serve lavender ice cream as well here on the farm, and for weddings, for our festivals, that kind of thing. So that's the variety we use for that, and it's a beautiful light pink. The other thing too is the whites and the pinks, colored lavenders. Those dry in a gray color, so sometimes you might not always want the color or the look of the bud in your food. So maybe you want to grind it or something, and you can't even ever see it. And usually what's cool about that is people will say, wow, this is so good, but I can't put my finger on it. What is it? Right? So it's kind of fun to do that. So anyway.
Oh, yeah. So you have one's used for hydrosols, one's used in foods, and you make a delicious syrup. And what else? That lemonade is amazing.
Chocolate lavender sauce.
Chocolate lavender sauce. But
teas.
Teas, yeah. And then your sachets, you have decorations. What is your favorite lavender that you grow, or what is something you feel really connected to?
Yeah, I'm very, very connected to the Melissa lilac variety for sure. That's become my signature lavender. And what I really like, I like everything about that one actually. So I like from the plant structure to the style leaves that it is different than most lavenders. The blossom is beautiful lilac color, and it looks like a velvet full head. But what I love about the aroma about it is the fact that it smells like lavender and honey, because it has an undertone of honey to it, and it's a deeper Some lavenders like Mayette can be kind of towards the higher notes, but the lavender Melissa Lilac is that one is it's not a base note, but it's a deeper mid note, so it's absolutely beautiful.
So, so for people who are like curious about getting into their own growing and distilling, do you have advice for them, especially just like jumping off the ground, and maybe advice for somebody who's looking to grow what they're doing? Or
well, education. I mean, really truly, you need to have some education. Find someone that will help you gain some experience, but the other thing too is don't dive in too big too fast. That's another thing that people make the mistake of, or not seeking counsel, and so therefore planting things that aren't going to grow in their zone. Mm-hmm. For example, most of the box stores around here want to sell us plants that are ready for zone 9 and 11, and we're a 5.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not going to make it past first frost. So there's just educate yourself. I really believe in education. I think that's the main thing.
And maybe like expect some failures, expect some times that you...
Oh, well, yes, those things happen. I mean, anytime, even when you propagate plants, they don't all make it. Mm-hmm. So you just have to accept that that's the way it is. Now, distilling, I don't accept any failures at this point.
Yes.
It all has to turn out beautiful, because I won't waste that much plant, because if I put 100 pounds of lavender into a still, that's a lot of botanical that you can't go back and replace.
Right.
You have to wait a year, right, for that. And so I do a lot of those, and if I were to mess up on those, it really would crush me. So I'm very careful about it, and I'm very fastidious about sterilization and making sure that I don't have an opportunity to have contamination, any of that stuff. So it's really important to do it accurately, but just learn what you're supposed to do.
What does a day look like in the thick of a harvest season in distillation? Go through what your day looks like, maybe even like kind of what your week looks like, just to kind of give people an idea of the work you put into this whole process and everything you do on this farm.
Well, from season to season, that does change a bit, but in the thick of it, okay, you were here earlier today. You saw it's a bit crazy, right? There's so many things going on, because I have my distiller assistant came in I'll just go through today. He came in at 4 o'clock to steam clean the stills and get things ready and start packing them and get the sterilization started and that kind of thing. And at the same time, at 5 o'clock, my harvesters are coming in. And so, of course, I used to do all of this myself, which to me now it baffles me that I was even able to do all these things myself. But now, we have employees and that kind of thing. So then the harvesters come in, and I get them laid out as to what it is I need, which varieties, how many pounds, because I grow lavender for other distillers. And so I had an order of 720 pounds for someone else that had to get done today too. So it wasn't just for myself that we harvest. And so it's a lot. I mean, altogether we did about 1,180 pounds, I think it was today, that we harvested, and that's typical. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of harvest. And then everything has to be weighed and measured and cataloged, and we keep our harvest records. Record keeping is huge, by the way. Without record keeping, you don't know what worked, what didn't work. If something doesn't turn out quite right, you need to have the records to be able to go back and say, okay, what affected this? Whether good or bad, actually. What affected this? If it's good, it's like, I want to repeat that. And so record keeping is really important. So then the stills are going, I'm taking care of them. Because now my farm is quite public, because we have lavender festivals, we have weddings here.
You have a little storefront out.
And I have a store. Yeah, we have our store. So I have a gal that runs my store. So I'm in distilling, and people kind of peek their head in, and they want to see what's going on. And of course, they want to ask questions. And as long as I'm at a place in my distillation to where it's not going to impact it, or if I have, like my distiller helper is not there the whole day. So if he happens to be there, then, I'll have him watch the stills for a second so I can actually answer a question to someone, because I never want to be rude to anyone or blow them off. I want them to feel welcome here, and I want them to feel interested. I really do, because I want to share what I've been blessed with. I've been blessed with this beautiful place. I've been blessed with the ability to, as I say, God makes these things and we just get to capture them. It's no different than a physician doesn't make a baby, they capture that baby, really. And that's kind of how I look at my distillation, that I get the privilege. Every single time that angel's mist comes across, which is the very first highest volatiles that you can't capture, I literally go over to the still and I just have to breathe it in, because it doesn't last but seconds, and then it's gone. And you can't experience that if you're not in a distillation experience like this. And it's so beautiful. And I just feel privileged. And I guess I really want to share that with other people. So I'm willing to take that time with people if I can. But another thing about my distillation is I really love my distillation room facility, because I try to make it, kind of pretty. And I want the atmosphere to be one so that the vibration from my oils captures what I want it to do. So I have certain music that I play, and I normally, today was a little crazy, but normally I don't really want people to come in. I want that to be a place that's almost sacred, and that it has
sanctuary.
Yeah. So there's a beautiful energy, that there's, I feel like the music has something that it ties into it. I feel like my state of being has something that ties into it. There's a little bit of me there. At least I hope so. And I want it to be such a beautiful product when I'm through, that I really don't want anything else to take away from that. Yeah.
So that's today was pretty crazy, and it's pretty crazy actually, because you guys just got done with your Lavender Festival, which I wanted you to spend some time talking about, because I think it's pretty incredible what you guys do, and the kind of agro-business community you've made with other people in your area, and how you sustain it, and what you do to kind of market your farm, which is why you do have people coming and visiting.
Right, yeah, which is, having people come to your farm and have it no longer be a private place is an adjustment. There's no question about that, because this used to be such a quiet, all the time quiet place, and now and it's still, a lot of it is, because I'll go out into the U-pick field and people will be out there and it's like a hushed experience. It's so quiet. It's like it's sacred ground.
Do you think these people feel like they need to be quiet, or do you think they just are? It's that you almost think it's got to just be something in the air right now.
Well, it could be the emotional impact that lavender has on us. Of course, it's calming, but also it's so beautiful to be in the midst of an entire field of purple. There's just something about it, right? Undeniably. I'm here all the time, and it still impacts me that way. It's just so exquisitely beautiful. And of course, it's not in bloom all year long. And so when it is in full bloom, it's just, I can't stop being appreciative that I get to be part of it. But it is fun, because I see the impact it has on people, and I literally go back out to the U-pick field, which is a field all its own. It's all Grosso, 1,300 Grosso plants. And they're out there, I can have 5,000 people in a weekend go through it, and it doesn't look like they've taken any.
I know. Well, that's what you were showing today, and I was like, oh, that's it?
I know, right?
Which is amazing, because you're like, I have 5,000 people here in 2 days.
Right. And then all of a sudden you go out there and you go, oh man, we have to harvest this one too. Because it's the last field that we harvest. And so literally by the time we get to it, we're like, ugh. That's a lot. I'm done with lavender for a while. But anyway, so yeah, we have a community here now called Wild Rose Prairie Community. And so what we do here is we have 13, at this point, we have 13 different farms. It's only 3 years old. And every single farm does something different. And our goal is for people to be able to come from the city and experience rural life. And what is that like? And it's different at each place. There's bee maniacs. There's the people that raise I forgot the name of the cattle, but they look like an Oreo cookie. To me, they're black and white. Anyway, then there's the, cut flower place, and there's a blueberry place, and there's a pumpkin place, and a Christmas tree place. And it's really fun to be part of that farming community of individuals that, want to band together, and the friendships that are built. It's really special. It really is. So anyway, that's part of what we do. We have our Lavender Festival that we talked about. And that, to me, from day one, I visualized, the field of dreams, right? And so these are my fields of dream at this point. And it's so beautiful when I see people come and they go out in the lavender field and they walk out and they're always smiling when they leave there, always. And they're carrying these bundles of lavender and they keep sniffing them. And I mean, the first person I ever saw come out of the field on our first festival was an 8-year-old girl. She looked 8 years old to me. Beautiful red wavy hair and kind of a chubby little thing. And she was skipping and singing, carrying a big fat bundle of lavender down the road, out our driveway. There was part of it. We have roads on our property, but on the road from the Lavender field. And I just literally started bawling. I just started crying because it was the epitome of what I was hoping this would become. I wanted this to be a place that people would find joy and tranquility, and they would be able to experience something so beautiful beyond anything that
something that they will probably never run into again. Like, it's
Right.
really unlikely that you run into just a lot of lavender farms, especially, I mean, and not that I've seen, and I know other people who do live in cities and stuff just don't have that experience. So
Yeah.
the
The festival has turned out to be something super special. We also have a community give back component to it, and the fact that there's an organization called Blessings Under the Bridge, and they do ministry to help homeless people. And so they feed them every Wednesday night, and they provide education, and they help provide jobs. They help get people off the streets. And I really believe in helping do that. And so part of what we do is for our festival is everybody brings donations of whatever types of things they're needing. Our first festival, we gained over 10,000 pairs of socks.
Yeah.
For the homeless. I mean,
yeah.
it does. I mean,
10,000. That's more. That's like so many more people than you even had at that one festival, right?
Right. So, I mean, people were bringing bags of socks
that's
for the homeless, and
incredible.
to me, that's touches me that the community would join in on that, right? And that we have the privilege of being that conduit, to help make that happen. And so, so what I'm doing in my life right now is super special to me. And then I also do have people that I have appointments with them for aromatherapy. And what I get to do for people for that, too, is also such a tremendous blessing to me. I have a client, for example, that has ankylosing spondylitis, which is she has chronic pain all over her whole body, and she sees a lot of different. She has a naturopath, and she has a massage therapist, and I'm her aromatherapist. So she's got different people that help with what she has to deal with because she'll have it the rest of her life. So you have to deal with it rather than cure it. And so she comes to me for a pain blend, and also for a blend for insomnia. And then just, to be able to be part of helping someone's life like that. I mean, what a privilege. What an absolute, utter privilege. And talk about having a purpose in life, right? And so, I'm in a real special place in my life right now.
It feels like you found like a lot of little niches to fill in, and found something for your farm and for your property, which is now a farm. I guess you said you had animals on it and things before.
Oh, well, before it was a ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while we were raising our children, it was a ranch. So we had horses and cattle, and we had red Angus, and we had ducks and geese and goats and chickens and, all the farm animals, except sheep. I didn't have sheep, and I didn't have llamas, but we had everything else. And it was a great time.
Did you ever visualize it would look like this?
No, there's no way. And I definitely, once the kids were raised, started exchanging poop for flowers.
Yes. How nice.
Yes, it's much nicer.
Smells a lot better too.
It certainly does.
So, you've talked a lot about some of the best things for you, but like, what are some of the hardest?
Exhaustion. No, I'm not.
I know you're not kidding. I'm tired looking at you.
This season right now. This season right now. I just have gone into. It's really. I go into a hard season because literally our day starts at 4 a.m. and then like last night I went to bed at 11:30 and I'm back up at 4. And most of that time. There's very little downtime during this season. But then, there's the other seasons too. I mean, during that, the winter times and that kind of thing, it's not like I'm not doing anything. That's when we're planning and we're pulling things together. We're having our meetings for the festivals. We have bridal shows because we do have a wedding venue here also. And what's nice now though is I'm not doing everything myself. I'm doing the parts that really, really are more meaningful to me. So, I have wedding coordinators to take care of the weddings. I don't do the harvesting myself anymore, except for I go out and I feel like I want to go do a couple of days each season, just because that's still part of my roots now of what this is. And I love doing it. The most beautiful time of the day here is at 4 a.m. With the sunrise. It is so gorgeous, and it makes you take that lavender and it just looks golden over it, and it's breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. But anyways, and the aroma, the birds are chirping, the bees are humming. It's just magical. So I do participate in that, but I'm distilling most of the time because distillation really is probably that and taking care of people through aromatherapy. Those are probably my very favorite parts of it. I do enjoy formulating, though, and blending. And I mean, see, I start going on and on. I like it all.
I like it all.
So I do. I really do. But I have had to make choices about where I need to be the most effective and where someone else, I can still provide these things for people, but I can have someone else do it and still have it for everyone else.
Finding a balance and making sure that your hands still being able to kind of touch all the little pots, but...
Well, we talk about sustainability with botanicals. We have to have sustainability in our own lives, too. Yeah. We really do. Yeah. We still have to have that time for our family, and we have to have that time for our spiritual walk. We have to have time for friendships, and we have to have time for rest. And, of course, this is not that season right now, but I do get it the rest of the year.
So, do you teach now that you've collected all this expertise?
I have classes in the spring and the summer here at the farm. So I have classes on, essential oils and blending. I have classes on hydrosols and how to use them and what are they, because some people just don't know.
Right.
Once they do, they start implementing in their lives. They just can't get enough. And then I also have classes on lavender and how to grow and maintain it and, care for it. But we also have some fun classes. We have classes where we take lavender stems and we make rolled baskets out of them.
Oh, wow.
Those are some of the most fun classes because they're so social, right? We have a girls' night out at the farm every spring and every fall. Well, last January, my daughter does all of our social media and marketing. So if you see a ton of stuff ever on Facebook and whatever, Christina has done it. She does a beautiful job at it. And she also oversees our festival. She and my husband do, actually. And they stick me in a booth and they call it Lavender School, or I forgot what they called it. It was Evening Light Education Center or something like that. Anyway, I was teaching little vignettes of education to the public at that. But so the classes and workshops, I also have Girls' Night Out. So last January, Christina promoted the Girls' Night Out for May. And in 24 hours, it was sold out at 50 people. And so it's really popular. So that we opened up a second night and it filled up too. And so we have people now saying, well, are you going to do it again in the fall? So we are. And it's so much fun because they get to have culinary, we use our culinary ingredients. and they get to have, little like snippets of food of, different kinds of dishes. They get to do taste testing, that kind of thing. We give prizes, and I give a little bit of education about facial care, skin care mostly. And then they get to try all my facial care products because I have a skincare line for each of the skin types. I also have a men's facial care line now too, and things like beard oil and stuff like that. Of course. Yeah. So they get to go through and do that, and then they end up in the store, and then we have some not corny games, like you do at a baby shower or anything like that, but we have some fun things that we do. So it's really a girls' night. A lot of mothers and daughters come, or like a real estate agent will bring her whole office and take up a whole table, things like that. And it's really a special night. So we've got some new things coming in December so we can do some things in the winter time. We're going to have like a mother-daughter tea. The gals that work in my wedding venue, they come up with these things now, right? So I can't say I can't take credit for them. I just get to enjoy the fact that they're here. There's a lot that goes on here. Yeah, and everybody who works for me gets to come up with new ideas, and they get to implement them, and so then that's
ever evolving.
Right. So that's enabling them to do something that pleases them while they're pleasing other people. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that's a pretty special part of it too.
It is. So where can people find you? Social media, website, Facebook?
Probably all of the above, because my daughter makes it sure that happens. But So on Facebook for the farm, it's Evening Light Lavender. If it's for our product line and that kind of thing, it's Positively Aromatic. And then our wedding venue is Lavender Manor. But for wholesale sales and that kind of thing, people usually contact me directly, either phone or email. So it's, Sandra at, so any of my companies, it's Sandra at, whichever company it is. So Sandra at positivelyAromatic.com is usually the best way to reach me.
So, and last question, I just wonder, what are your future plans?
Do you really want to hear what's all in this brain?
You don't have to pull out the big picture book. Just like, let's say 10 years down the road, maybe.
Okay, so I have this new distillation facility going on in my head. I've designed it in my head. I do it in my sleep. I'm wanting a 300-liter still. And so, yeah, I really am excited about kind of if I get to do that ever, because that's really the direction I want to go.
So still growth. You're looking at
absolutely
growth in everything you're doing.
Oh, I will always grow as long as I'm alive. So my new greenhouse, actually all the parts for that are being delivered tomorrow. So I'm so excited. It'll be a 30 by 72 foot greenhouse. So I've been waiting for a long time for that. So I'm pretty excited.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
You're doing some awesome things here. I'm excited to see what you do and to come back in the future and maybe next year come to the Lavender Festival.
Oh yeah, you would have a good time. That'll be July 11th and 12th next year. But the thing is, it's not me that does it. You say you do a lot of great things, but it's a team of people. It's the opportunity for other people to get to do things too, just because we're here.
It's kind of like a sweet blessing, and I can't say it really fell into your lap because I feel like you dug it out of the ground and grew it yourself, but I think you really lucked into something special here, and I think everybody who comes to this farm, you can see it on their face, and you can see it in their curiosity, and
you saw that today for yourself, didn't you?
People were so into this, and all the families that came by and all dressed up and getting pictures, but also just kind of running through the fields. It is something really special. So
it is. It's different, to be your own property, and all of a sudden you look out and there's families all over the place, taking pictures and having a good time.
But you also wanted to share this with them. But at the same time,
it's exactly what I wanted. That was my fields of dream. Right, and I have to say that with the plural.
Fields of dream.
My fields of dream. It was for that very thing to happen. And if you look at my mission statement, that's basically exactly what it says, that I can share this with people. So
So thank you for having me here and having us be able to enjoy this moment for the podcast in your backyard of all places. And I can't wait to do this again, and maybe we can get you to teach a class on either growing or distilling at NAHA 2020. No pressure putting her on the spot.
My.
If you don't see Sandra up on stage, you might see her smiling and hanging out in the audience.
I might just be able to volunteer again and help everybody out.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me. And
thanks for coming. It's been delightful to have you here, and we were both on the trip to Egypt and bonded, and I just feel like you've become a dear friend, and I just thank you for the privilege of having you come and see what my world is about.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening.